Hi guys, welcome to the Art of Server. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a processor upgrade on my HP Z840 workstation. So up until now, I've only had a test processor in there. It's just a low-end processor just to make sure everything works. And now I'm going to actually install the processors that I actually want to use in that system. So I have here our two E5-2680 V4. So these are the Broadwell CPUs. And so up until now, I only have a testing Haswell CPU in there. So, and actually only have one processor in there right now. So we're going to be upgrading to two processors. And also this is going to be a much faster processor than what's in there currently. All right, so I've got two of these guys. And like I said, since I only have one processor in there and I'm adding a second one, I'm going to need some additional RAM for that second socket. And so I've got my set of DDR4. So these are 2400 DDR4 registered ECC DIMMs. So these are 16 gigabyte modules. I'm not going to be installing the whole set. This is just kind of my collection of DDR4 ECC registered memory, but I'll probably be using, I think, 4 of these for the second socket because the first socket already has 4 similar modules as well. All right, so other than doing the CPU upgrade and the additional memory, what I really want to show you in today's video is this. So this is a special CPU cooling option for the HP Z840 provided by HP. And not a lot of people know about this, but this is called the HP Z Cooler. And it's a very interesting cooling option for the HP Z840. Now, if you've had the previous generation Z820 as well as the Z800, you know that HP offered a liquid cooling option for those systems. Now, the Z840 does not have a liquid cooling system option from HP at least, but instead what they have is what I have in this box. So let's go ahead and do an unboxing. Oh, you know what? Actually, before I get into that, let me tell you the part number here. So you'll see here is HP Z Cooler part number N3R54AA. So let me bring this up to the camera so you guys can see that. All right, so anyway, let's check this one out. I actually have 2 of these. All right, so this is what you can expect from the inside. The usual product notices, worldwide limited warranty. Okay, we don't really need that. Installation instructions. So I might need to take a look at this later, but I don't think this is actually too complicated to install. I think these are just the typical installation. Yeah, there's an additional fan we're gonna need, which I think I already have. All right, well anyway, those are the instructions. I haven't actually installed this before, so it's gonna be my first time around, but oh, actually, you know what? There is a fan in here already, so maybe I might need that one. Okay, so let's just get the boring stuff out of the way. So there is an additional fan, and this basically goes into that air shroud that covers the CPU area. So unlike other computers, PCs, the fan is not actually attached to the heat sinks. It's actually attached to an air shroud that has some crazy number of fans. And so if you've seen my previous videos on HP Z840, you will have noticed what I call the the air coercion chamber, because it's just some crazy chamber of, like, I think 6 different fans in there. But anyway, so I'm not sure if we need this, but if we do, I have it. There's a zip tie in here, I guess, for cable management purposes. Is there anything else in here? No, okay, all right. So the interesting part is right here. This, let's see if I can get it out. Oh, it's very tightly fitted in there. All right, all right, there we go. Ow, that's kind of sharp over there. All right, so let me get the box out of the way. All right, so this is the HP Z cooler, and later on when we take a look at what's in the Z840 right now, you'll notice that it looks almost identical. Really, if you're not really paying attention, they basically look identical. But this uses what's called a vapor chamber for enhanced cooling, and also the fins have a special design. So I don't know if you can see it in the camera here, but I'll try to do some B-roll so you guys can kind of get a close look at these fins. But basically they have a wave pattern, and this makes the fins basically have more surface area. And this is basically an enhanced cooling CPU cooling option for the HP Z840 without actually going to liquid cooling. All right, and then let me take this cover off. These are brand new, so they already have the thermal paste applied, so that's really nice. And in a perfect rectangle, which I like. All right, and let's see, how's that? And there's this cable here. All right, let's leave that aside for a second. This cable here is really interesting. It's a 2-wire cable, and you might be thinking like, oh, well, what does this run? Like, there's no fan attached to this, so what is this for, right? And if you actually follow the cabling, all it does is connect to the metal here. And so I think this is basically a sensing cable, and that these two wires are basically shorted on the metal here. And this plugs into the motherboard to let the system know, the baseboard management system know, that we have a special cooling system. And so I think it's going to change the fan profile to match in optimal settings for when you're using the HPZ cooler here. So that's interesting. And I think this is not really well documented. A lot of people don't know what to do with this. And I'll show you where to plug this in on the motherboard. I've already taken a look at the motherboard, so I know where this is going to go. But if you don't plug this in, it'll still work. Basically, the system will assume that you have like a regular cooler, and it'll just stay to the normal fan profiles, which I think are more aggressive than the ones for this HPZ cooler. So it'll still be safe to run that way. This, I think, just allows the fans to run a little bit slower, because I think this has a higher heat removal rate, I guess. And so it can run the fans a little bit slower, and therefore can keep your HP Z840 a little bit quieter. So anyway, I don't really sell this in my store. If I do, I'll leave a link down in the video description, but as of the making of this video, I don't have these in my store, but I will leave a link to eBay that searches for this part for you. So if you're interested in this, check out my links. It'll help you find this part on eBay. All right. So I actually have two of these, and let's go get the HP Z840 set up here and begin the installation. All right, so I've got my HP Z840 laid down on the table here. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. All right, so the CPUs are under here, and in order to remove this fan chamber thing, this is basically the air coercion chamber that I was talking about. We got to remove the cover for the PCI slots. All right, once we've got that removed, and you'll see that there is this protrusion where a fan is mounted, and that's the reason why we have to remove that cover in order to get this out. So you can just pull this up, and yep, there we go. So this is the air coercion chamber. You'll see there are 1, 2, 3, 4 small fans that basically cool the RAM, and then there is 1, 2. Oh, actually, so we don't have the second fan. We're gonna have to go ahead and install that, but these are the fans that blow air over the CPU cooler. Alright, so this is the normal CPU cooler that you would get if you don't have that special HP Z cooler that we just looked at. So let me go get some tools and we're going to open this up and take this off, and I'll kind of show you the difference between the Z cooler and the normal cooler. Okay, so this is a Torx 15 screwdriver. I don't know why HP uses a Torx screw. It's kind of a pain. And also, it's a little bit hard to reach the screws in the back here because there's no direct straight access. You kind of have to go in at an angle. Not really a great design, but manageable. Alright, that looks like it's loose. So let me just lift it up. Alright, so if you take a close look at this, and let me grab the Z cooler here. So you'll see that they're very similar in dimensions, overall dimensions. And you'll see this has the heat pipes directly contacting the CPU IHS, and so there's just carrying heat. The heat pipes just carry the heat up into these straight fins, and then the air blows through it, and that's it. Now, if you compare that to this, the Z cooler, you'll notice obviously the fins are different. The fin design is different. The fin stack is also a little bit taller, goes all the way to the top. But you'll notice down here. Let me take this off. That these heat pipes go into this bottom plate here, and there's also fins down here as well. And so this is supposed to be a vapor chamber design rather than just kind of heat pipes directly contacting the IHS. So that's the difference. And then of course there's that wire. Let me get you guys a side view. So yeah, that's interesting. So I didn't notice this till now, but from the side view, you'll see that air can exit out here as well, whereas this one is a little bit closed off here. So basically, it's just a enhanced CPU heatsink, basically. And that, I guess, is enough to allow the system to change fan profiles to a quieter setting. Alright, so let me put this aside. Alright, so I have one CPU in socket 1, or CPU 0 socket, and then CPU 1 socket is vacant right now. I'm going to be installing some DIMMs as well, so let me go ahead and just open up those DIMM slots. I'm just going to install 4 16 gigabyte DIMMs for a total of 64 here and 64 here. Alright, let me grab the processors. And by the way, if you're doing this type of upgrade to your own HP Z840, note that in the previous video I showed you guys how to update the BIOS. And if you have one that's pretty old, it might have been like the first releases of this machine, you might need to do a BIOS update before you upgrade to a Broadwell CPU. Okay, so if you install some Broadwell CPUs and the system isn't booting, that might be it. So you might have to get yourself an older Haswell CPU in order to get the system booting and update the BIOS, and then you can install your Haswell CPUs, or sorry, the Broadwell CPUs. All right, basically the V4s. All right, so let's go ahead and release this. All right, let's go ahead and put the processor in. So we'll match the triangle to that triangle right there and gently lay it on the pins. Now when you're clamping down, it's recommended that you apply pressure to both levers at the same time. And obviously this one has to go in first, and then that one. I find that if you don't do that, sometimes the pins can slip, and what will happen is the system will boot up, but some of the DIMM slots won't work because the contacts to the DIMM slots is not correct. All right, so let's go ahead and do the second one. Remove the cover plate. Here's the second processor, and the triangle is over there. By the way, as of this recording, I actually sell these processors in my store, so if you'd like to pick up an E5-2680 V4 Haswell Xeon CPU, go check out the link in the video description. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and place this gently on the pins. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and install the RAM first before I put the CPU coolers on, just because it'll give me a little bit more space. Okay. All right, and one more. All right, and we're done. All right, so this already has the thermal paste on it, so we just basically have to install it. But before I do that, let me point out to you where this is going to plug into. So there are two 3-pin headers on the motherboard, and oh well, you know what, one of them is actually right behind that DIMM, so I'm probably have to remove that DIMM in order to install this. That's not a very convenient place, unfortunately. Okay, so there's one 3-pin header behind this DIMM. I'll remove that memory so you guys can see it. And then there's another one up over here at the front of the motherboard, and that's for the first processor, and that's for the second processor. So let me remove that DIMM. I've actually never done this install before, so I didn't realize that DIMM would be in the way of that 3-pin header. So you know what, I'm going to go ahead and install this one first then. So I'm actually going to install the second CPU first, or the cooler for the second CPU first. I think that's in. Let me get the other side. All right. That's not going in too well. Let me try this corner first. Having a bit of a hard time getting this screw in the corner in. Yeah, the spring tension on this cooler is really tight. All right, I think I finally got it. Wow, yeah, that was a little bit of a pain. All right, so yeah, definitely the screws on the rear side are rather hard to reach, and you have to go in at an angle. All right, so I think that's installed. Let's go ahead and attach this 3-pin header. So it's 3 pins, but there's only 2 wires. All right, and I'm gonna tuck it down here out of the way so it won't get in the way of my memory installation here. All right, let's put the memory back in. That makes a weird clicking sound when I press down. Hope that's okay. But yeah, that's a little strange. Well, we'll see. We'll fire up this machine later on and see if that works. Let me go get the first or the other HP Z cooler to put on the first socket. All right, here is the other HP Z cooler. And let's go ahead. So since I know better now, I'm actually going to start on the 2 screws on the back here, because they're the hard ones to get in. So I want to get those in first. And I think these have a little bit of wiggle, and that'll be easier to manipulate. So I'll start with this. All right, I think that's threaded in. All right, that's threaded in as well. And now I'll install the front screws. Yeah, and there's a lot of tension. So I'm gonna apply pressure. All right, that's threaded in. Sorry, I know you guys can't see with my hands in the way, but the springs on these are really tight, so I have to apply downward pressure with one hand while I turn the screwdriver. All right, I think that's in. Yeah, definitely a lot easier if you start with the 2 screws on the back side first. All right, so easy enough. And then we're going to connect this to the 3-pin header over here. And I'm going to route that also down here and out of the way. All right, so all we need to do is put the air chamber back, but we got to install that fan. Just so I don't drop anything into the machine here, I'm going to put the cover on for now. And so here is the air chamber. And we got to add that second fan over here. And there's a header here, I think, for, let's see. Now this, I have to say, is, in spite of the craziness with all the fans, is fairly well designed. It's completely toolless, I believe. And there's a fan header here. I think I'm supposed to use this to connect this fan here. So fan number 5, I believe. All right. And so I guess when it's not in use, it has a little slot here that it can sit in until it's needed. So that's kind of nice. All right, let me get the fan. All right, so here's the fan, and let's see. Looks like I can slide it onto these 2 tabs, and then there are these clips that will clip onto the other side. But before I do that, I want to think a little bit about how I'm going to route this cord, because it's a little bit on the long side. And I'm going to be plugging that into this. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe I can do this and just have the cord wrap around. See, I don't know if that's long enough. Let me see if that's going to be long enough or not. Okay, so right there. Yeah, I think that's good. Now, for those of you who are OCD, and I know I've got a lot of viewers who are OCD, I know the alignment of that label and this label are perpendicular, not parallel, but you know, it's not going to affect how the fan functions. I just like to wrap the cord so I don't have too much excess cable sticking around, but I should be able to just press this in, I think. Yep. All right, so fan installed, and I think that should be just fine. All right, check that out. All right, let's take the cover back off and get that installed. So this should just slide right in. Easier said than done. Oh, that's interesting. It's kind of a tight fit, actually. I don't know if that's because, well, no. Then, all right, I mean, it fits. Yeah, that fits, but it went down a little tight and snug. I'm gonna remove it just to make sure I'm not bending anything, causing some problems. But yeah, I think it's this one in particular is really tight in here. I think it's pushing up against these plastic walls. So that was a little unexpected. Like I said, this is my first time installing this, so I would think that there would be a little bit of play, but no, I think this is just up against the wall here. So, but it seems to work. I'm not bending anything that I don't want to be bending that I know of. So, all right, let's put it back in. Yep. Yeah, it's catching on to that one. This one, not so much. On this side, it's on the second CPU. There's plenty of room, so you can see this side moves easily. This side, it's really, really snug. Okay, and that snap-in is just the electrical connector getting pushed into the motherboard, so I think that's okay. All right, well, that's interesting. All right, all we gotta do is put the PCIe cover back on. All right, so I'm just gonna install this cover, latch it on the back side here, and just pivot in and press it down until this clip clicks on. All right, and then we just need the cover on. All right, that's it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this off the desk and plug in all the cables and fire it up and make sure that everything works. All right, guys, the system is booting up now. I'm gonna press the F10 key to get into the setup menu. And it's actually been a little bit of time since the last segment in this video because I actually ran into some problems, which I'll get into in a little bit here. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to record the troubleshooting that led to here. All right, so anyway, I'll get to that in a second here, but let's take a look at this system information. So hopefully everything has come up correctly. And so, yep, processor first and second, Xeon E5-2680 V4, so all that is good. Memory size 128 gigabytes, which is correct because we had 4 16 gigabyte DIMMs on each socket, so that's 8 times 16 is 128. All right, so everything seems to be working now, which is great. So this is what happened, guys. After I packed the machine up and moved it to my desk and plugged in the cables and keyboard, mouse, and monitor and all that stuff. And then also I have a video capture device that's capturing the output that you're seeing right now. So I had to hook all that up. Anyway, when I first powered it on, it would not power on, or it would not boot up, I should say. So it would give me a red light on the power button and give me 5 beeps. And if you look at the inside cover, the inside of the front panel, or not front, but side panel that we took off earlier, that it actually tells you a whole lot about the system. And one of them near the bottom, it shows you, or it tells you what the beep codes mean, which is really, really nice. And 5 beeps means memory error or memory related error. And so I immediately jumped into troubleshooting. So I didn't have a chance to like set up the camera again to actually record that. So sorry about that, guys. But anyway, I'll just kind of describe to you what happened. I took out the 3 of the 4 memory modules out of the second socket because I know the first socket was working before, and so hopefully that didn't become a problem. So most likely it would be the second socket, right? So anyway, I took out 3 of the 4, turned it on. It seemed to post okay, so I turned it off, put in the second one, rinse and repeat. Everything seemed to be okay until I got to the 4th DIMM slot, which is the DIMM slot, by the way, earlier in this video where I was pressing on it and it would make a creaking sound. And I don't know if that has anything to do with this problem, but apparently the problem's gone now, so probably not. But anyway, the 4th DIMM module was giving me that 5 beep memory error problem. And so as soon as I take it out, it would stop beeping, put it back in, it starts beeping. And so then I swapped 2 of the memory modules from like the 3rd and the 4th, knowing that the 3rd works fine in the 3rd slot. So thinking that maybe it was a memory module problem, the problem still persisted. By the way, a tip for you guys, if you are having a memory error in any system since Westmere, so this including the obviously the Haswell and Broadwell that this HP Z840 is part of, the memory controller is integrated into the CPU. So if you get a memory error or memory related problem, it can be the memory module itself. It could be the slot on the motherboard, which you would hope it's not because that's a much more expensive part. Or it could be your processor or how that processor is seated in the LGA socket. And so since the memory module seemed to be okay, and it was only having a problem in the 4th DIMM slot, the one that was closest to that power supply, it's either the motherboard or the CPU. And so hoping that it's not the motherboard, and now that we are actually seeing 128 gigabytes, it's not the motherboard, thank goodness. I reseated the CPU, so I actually took off the HP Z cooler from the 2nd socket, removed the processor, reseated it, and redid the whole thing to get it back installed. And then that's when I started this recording. So it's now booting up without any memory errors. So it was probably, my guess is that when I was installing that HP Z cooler for the first time on that 2nd socket, because we did that one first, and I was having a hard time getting the screws to contact the threads. So there was a lot of kind of shifting around of things. I suspect maybe while I was doing that, some of the pins perhaps related to that particular DIMM slot got shifted a little bit and wasn't making good contact. And so by removing the CPU to allow all the pins to kind of go back into their normal positions and reseat the CPU back down. And this time, learning from earlier, I attached the HP Z cooler by kind of threading in those 2 screws that are in the back side that are harder to reach first, and then screwing down the other 2 screws on the front side that were easier to. So that, by the way, I guess is a lesson learned. It's a lot easier to install the HP Z cooler by doing that. And I think by doing that, I messed less with it and had a cleaner install, I guess, without messing around, pressing down on the processor too much. So anyway, it seems to have solved the problem. So thank goodness, no real hardware problem, just slight installation error. So anyway, I just want to share that with you guys because in case you run into a similar problem while you're watching this video, maybe that'll help you guys out. Just want to share that tip with you. But anyway, it looks like we have the CPUs working. We've got all the memory modules working now, so that's wonderful. Alright, that's it for today. I just wanted to share with you guys my Z840 upgrade using the Vapor Chamber HP Z Cooler. If you didn't know about the HP Z Cooler option, I hope you found this informative. If you liked this video, be sure to give me that thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel and you like this sort of stuff, be sure to subscribe. Also, if you want to support my channel, go check out my eBay store. I'll leave a link down in the video description below. I have all sorts of awesome server and workstation gear in my store, so go check it out. Thanks for watching and have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.